Hey friends, thanks for clicking on this video and joining in on this topic of discussion. And it has to do with lead fouling in your firearms. Now, I realize that everybody has their own way of getting lead out of a gun barrel. There's a ton of products on the market to do this. And I just kind of want to have a general conversation with a couple of things, well, one thing in particular that I want to convey to everybody. I've never really had an issue with leading in any of my firearms, and in particular my 9mm and my .380. And if you look above me, you can see I've got those containers that are full of lead bullets ready to go. Okay, and this little container right here with the flowers on it, that's all full of lead precast for .380. Now, I've never had an issue in any of my semi-automatics with lead fouling, and like a lot of people, I do the same thing. Shoot the lead, then turn around and shoot a couple of copper jacketed bullets. Now there again, you have another whole discussion matter. Well, now I've got copper fouling. What do I need to buy to get rid of copper fouling? So, you know, for me at least, in this topic of discussion, there's a no-win situation. It really is. It's all personal preference and what you choose to do to cut down on either the copper fouling or the leading. Now, as most of you know, I've been working with my 1860 Richards Type 2 conversion and getting it to impact at the point of aim, and I had to put a taller front sight on it and work with the front sight. Now, I appreciate all the comments that I got from people saying, well, use a different gunpowder and that'll change the point of impact. And I can kind of see that, but not 4 to 6 inches. As far as I'm concerned, you're not going to move the point of impact from here to here by just changing gunpowders. It's physically impossible. But I do appreciate the comment and the thoughts. But I'm the type of guy that I want to keep it simple because I don't want to spend $100,000 in different types of gunpowder just to move it 6 inches without adjusting the front sight. Okay, so, and the one thing that I've noticed with this particular gun is it does lead foul pretty damn quick. Okay, but before I get to that, I just kind of want to show where I got with this. Okay. So a few days ago, a week ago or so, I set up this target. It's shot number 1. Then I worked with it and I got everything to print right there. Okay. Then I drew a smaller circle, you know, aim small, miss small. And with that thought in mind, I had 9 bullets left over. 3 bullets with 5.5 grains of Winchester 231 with a 200 grain bullet. Then I had 3 rounds with 5.5 grains of Trail Boss with my bullet, and 3 rounds of Winchester 231 with my friend's bullet, William. My friend William sent me some bullets, and this was his bullet. Okay, so the first 3 shots with the 200 grain bullet ended impacting right here. Then I reloaded 1 bullet with my lead bullet, and then William's lead bullet, my lead bullet, William's lead bullet, my lead bullet, William's lead bullet. They were all 240 grain bullets, and all 6 impacted right there at 20 yards. And I was using a pillow to rest. I didn't use a bench rest. I just used a pillow and steadied everything right there, and all 6 240 grain bullets impacted right here. The 200 grain bullets hit low. So as far as I'm concerned, this revolver is sighted in, and I did nothing more than silver solder in a larger, taller front sight and wider. And I was able to work the height down by filing the end point, raise it up by filing this down, and then I filed off one side of the front sight to move the barrel one way or the other. And as you can see, I got it. But as I just mentioned, this gun leads up pretty quick, and that's using a soft, pure lead bullet, using a bullet that is a 5B, which is a 40-to-1 lead-tin ratio, a 4B, which I believe is 25-to-1, 25 pounds of lead to 1 pound of tin, or 2 pounds of tin. I'd have to go and double check. Don't quote me on that, but I'm just getting to the point to where even when I've experimented with harder lead, I still have a lead fouling issue. And then the bullets that my friend William sent me, those are, I think it's Lyman number 2, which is a pretty hard, which is just the next step harder than range lead, okay? And I've got some 4B over here, which is just right at the point of range lead, so it's pretty hard. But with all those bullets, I still have a leading issue, and most of it is at the forcing cone. Now, several years ago, when I was still working on the pheasant farm, my employer, we had a Marlin 22 for varmint control, and you couldn't hit the inside of a barn with that 22. So at one point I asked him, when's the last time you cleaned the barrel and got all the lead out of this barrel? Because I suspected it was a lead fouling issue. And he said, never. I said, never? I says, how long you own the gun? He said, well, I'm the original owner. I said, holy crap. You've never done anything to remove any lead fouling? No. So I went home, checked YouTube at the time, and I came across some videos that suggested an old-time concoction of white vinegar and peroxide. And before I get to the experiment, because this is what this is going to end up being, I relayed that to my employer, and he didn't want to do it. So he took it to the local gunsmith, and about a week later he got the gun back, and the barrel was brand new, shiny. I mean, looking down that barrel, you couldn't tell that it had several decades lead fouling built up in it. So I asked him, did the gunsmith tell you what he used to clean out the lead fouling? And he said, yeah, white vinegar and peroxide. Go figure, right? So that gunsmith knew of this old-time concoction. Now, with this being said, there is an absolute caution. Do not let this set in your gun barrel for more than 20 minutes. Or so, this is what everybody states, and I'm just repeating what everyone else has stated. I have since that original video for me that I explained to my employer popped up last week on my YouTube searches because I was looking at some stuff and, easy way of getting lead fouling out, okay? And then since then, a couple other videos had popped up. So bear in mind, I'm only repeating what they've stated. But as I say this, both of these channels did experiments putting lead in a glass jar with a 50-50 mixture of distilled white vinegar and 3% peroxide. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay. I've got one of my 240 grain bullets tumble lubed bullet, and I did a cross section on the bottom of the bullet this morning to take a measurement. Now these are supposed to be .430, and on one measurement I got .430, and on the other side I got .434. So it's not a perfectly round bullet, okay, despite what Lee says about their bullet molds. But it's efficient enough to do this test, okay, and I've got the measurements and I have a stopwatch. Now I can already see it. Oh, I use Hoppe's. That's fine. Use what you want to use. But here's the thing. Read on the label of the hydrogen peroxide. Both sides. Read every single word. Read every single word on your distilled vinegar. Then read what's on the label of hops number 9. And on the back side, and in the finest of prints, warning, this product contains chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer and birth defects or other reproductive harm. So you use this shit knowing it's going to cause cancer. Mind blown. Okay? This is the whole point that I'm trying to get at. Why spend the amount of money on a cancer-causing lead reduction in your gun barrel when white vinegar and peroxide is god-awful cheap and it cures the issue? Okay? Now, before I get to the total experiment here, I also want to bring something forward. And it's my fault because I just assumed everybody already knew about this concoction. And when I mentioned it to my friend Broken Feather, he'd never heard it. So that's an assumption on my part. So I'm not going to assume that everybody is aware of this. But there is another formula out there that works very good in removing lead fouling, but it doesn't take care of it the first time. It's called Ed's Red. And if you've never heard of Ed's Red, what it is it's equal parts of, and I'm using this specifically, O'Reilly's Premium ATF fluid. Okay? And another equal part of odorless kerosene, equal part of acetone, and an equal part of mineral spirits. Okay, now the way this is supposed to work is, lubrication, the combination of the kerosene and the mineral spirits works underneath the lead fouling to help remove it. Okay, now there is one thing about this concoction, and I've known about this for a long time, but I've never bothered to make it just simply because, like most everybody else, I got a shelf full of cleaning stuff to clean my gun barrels. Now that this stuff is getting to the point to where I don't have much left, it's like, what's another alternative? And if you go on YouTube and type in Ed's Red gun cleaning solution, you will see that there is a ton of favorable videos promoting this specific thing. Now I do have one added thing to my concoction. And it's not prevalent, but there is a few videos out there. Some of the guys add an equal part of lanolin, which is a waxy substance derived from sheep's wool. And that lanolin is supposed to help lubricate, season, if you will, the gun barrel after you're done cleaning it. Now there's I only came across one video out there that had an issue making Ed's Red. Okay, now I've had this sitting on my shelf for 2 weeks now, and it has not separated. The issue that this fellow was talking about, Ed's Red, is he used an inferior ATF fluid. And however that ATF fluid was concocted, it did not keep the chemicals in one concoction. It actually separated. Now, like I said, I've had this for a couple of weeks now, and it's not separated. Even the lanolin is staying liquefied. And I have used that on this revolver with positive results. Okay, so I do want to state that. So what I'm going to do now is I've got 2 ounces of white vinegar, and I'm going to put some hydrogen peroxide, 2 ounces. I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes. Now, I don't have any gun barrel material specifically to use in this test. The tests that I've watched on YouTube have made 2 separate concoctions to put the bullet in and a separate mixture to put, then they happen to have gun barrel, pieces of gun barrel that they cut off. What I have here is a piece of high carbon steel and a piece of mild steel. Now, the thing that gets me about those 2 videos that I watch, which are excellent, and I suggest you go and watch them. If you just do a simple YouTube search, white vinegar, peroxide used for removing leading, these videos should come up. Okay? Now, the thing that I question about those 2 videos is they put the lead in a separate container with the gun barrel in a separate container, because yes, this concoction will pit metal. There's other videos out there of other formulas used, but everybody is cautioned. Set a timer and do not deviate from the set timer. So I have a timer. I'm going to set it for 20 minutes because back in the day, and again, I'm only repeating what someone else has said, I haven't been able to find any hard copy, anything in print that says, yes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But the videos that I have seen, everybody seems to settle on 20 minutes is sufficient enough to get leading out of your gun barrel. And then, of course, like anything else, rinse the gun barrel out. Neutralize the effects of this concoction, just the same as you would neutralize using hops. But yet, what do you do to neutralize the effect of you getting cancer using this? Oh, wait a minute. Nothing. Sarcasm intended, okay? Sarcasm intended. And there again, if this Ed's Red don't work for you, I don't care. I've got a gallon of kerosene now that I can put in my kerosene lanterns. When I go to rendezvous, I've got it. So it's not like I'm wasting any of my resources. And I think as this economy gets worse and worse and worse, I think you're going to see more and more people resorting to shooting lead bullets and forgetting chasing it with copper jacketed bullets, because let's face it, copper jacketed bullets are a lot more expensive than lead bullets, or at least they should be. Okay, so I'm going to get set up here, and for the context of this experiment, I'm going to drop the bullet and these 2 pieces of steel, metal, in with it, because I'm curious about a secondary reaction, because when you put this down a gun barrel to remove lead, you should be thinking about the secondary reaction with the metal. But there again, I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes, and we'll see, because the guys that I've watched do this have left the metal in this concoction for several hours, and it does cause pitting, and there is a reaction with this concoction to metal and steel, and in particular gun barrel. Now, one fella that I watched, people were telling him, well, it removes the finishing, it removes the bluing. from the experiment that he did after 1 hour of leaving that piece of gun barrel in this concoction, it did not remove the bluing. But like anything else, even if you see it on this channel and you kind of, I really don't know, go do it yourself. Test it yourself. Base your decisions not on what someone's telling you on YouTube, but base your decisions on your own experimenting with it, just like the Ed's Red. I've been satisfied with it. And for me personally, I'll tell you straight up, I will probably never do this. But I'm doing it for the benefit of those that may not know. Okay? So, I'm going to get set up here. This is just the white vinegar. I'm going to add the 2 ounces of hydrogen peroxide, 3%. And I'm going to drop the bullet. And remember, what you are dealing with now is an acid. So you use every precaution you deem necessary for safety. Eye protection. So I don't know if mixing this up, swirling it around, but you got to remember, back in the day, these were just household items that you already had sitting around. You didn't have to run to the local hardware store and buy something specifically for getting lead out of your, your Colt 45. Okay, so I'm going to drop in the piece of mild steel first. Let me set the timer here. Well, let me set the timer once I get everything in. And there goes the bullet. And there, whoops, there goes the timer. It's actually set for 21 minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to do this. And, oh shit. Let me show you what it's doing to the bullet already. So you can see already there's a reaction with that lead. Okay, but I don't see anything happening with the pieces of metal. Now everything that I've seen with this concoction does dissolve lead. And you can see there is a reaction happening right there. So while this does its thing, I also want to let everybody know with the 2 pieces of metal, I got them polished down, and I only went to 400 grit just to get a smooth surface, because I want to see in a 20-minute time frame what it's going to do to the metal. Okay, so I do want to let you know that I did polish it up. And while we're discussing this, the experiment I did a while back with the Murphy's Oil Soap, the alcohol, and the peroxide. This is the side with that concoction, Murphy's Oil Soap, alcohol, and peroxide. And it's been sitting here in my shop for this length of time. And to be honest with you, the past week and a half, this shop has reached 70 degrees with 70% humidity, excuse me. So it actually got pretty humid in this shop. And as you can see, there's no rusting or damage done to this metal. Okay, and neither is there any damage on the other side. Now the thing that I find funny, that when I burnt all of that toilet paper gunpowder across everything and then cleaned it up, I left a section right here thinking that it was going to rust, because black powder rusts, and I'm not saying it doesn't, but the only discoloration that I'm getting on this right now is right up here. It's starting to turn a little brown in color, like there might be some rusting going on. I'm seeing a little bit of a color change right in through here, but I'm going to go ahead and scrape a little spot below this main spot right here and see if there's anything happening underneath the buildup of black powder. Judge for yourself. Just judge for yourself. It ain't there. And in no way, shape, or form am I telling anybody, well, you can leave your gun, your black powder's dirty, nothing's going to happen. That's not what I'm telling you. But just judge for yourself. I live in the Southwest. My conditions are a whole lot different than somebody living in the Southeast, up in the Northwest, Middle Northwest, or even the Northeast. I do realize I live in a very dry climate. And those are the results thus far after this amount of time. And what's it been? I'm just guessing off the top of my head, a month already. But I'm going to just still leave it here, just to show that the hydrogen peroxide is not harming this once I've cleaned it out and re-oiled it. See, that's the whole point. No one's going to leave your cleaning concoction inside your gun barrel without running water through it first, or a dry rag with oil on top of it. Alright, carrying on. So as you can see, we got a couple minutes to go. Since I accidentally added an extra minute to this, I'm going to shut this off at 1 minute. So basically we're into 2 minutes, and as you can see for yourself, this is still having an effect on that lead. And when I hit that 1 minute mark, I'm going to go ahead and drop all three components, the 2 pieces of metal and the lead, into a jar of water to neutralize everything. And then I'm going to measure everything once again and record those numbers, and I'll turn the camera back on and let you know what my findings are. Alright, let's conclude. Did it hurt? The 2 pieces of metal? Now this piece was the mild steel, just quarter-inch square stock, mild steel. There's no discernible pitting or damage on it at 20 minutes. Here's the high carbon steel. Remember, both sides were polished all the way up to 400 grit, and there's no discernible pitting. None at all. Okay, now I will tell you, on the mild steel, just a slight discoloration. But bear in mind, gun barrels are not made out of mild steel. So there is a difference. So don't make a judgment, you know, a conclusive judgment based on a piece of mild steel compared to carbon steel. Okay? Now, this was the condition of the bullet before I dropped it in. This is what it looks like at 20 minutes. You can see there is a clear distinction between the two. But what do the numbers tell us? Okay, before I dropped it in, and like I showed you, I cut some measuring points on it so that I could measure the same spot before and after. Before, on one side I had a measurement of 0.430 and on the other side 0.434. After having this set into this concoction for 20 minutes, one side measured 0.428 and the other side measured 0.433. Now you might be wondering, well, it didn't take off equal amounts. Remember, some of it was sitting on the side, and that may be the reason why, you know, it didn't take off 0.02 on that one side, as opposed, you know, to what I got the first time. So I went from 0.430 to 0.428, and then I went from 0.434 to 0.433. Once again, bearing in mind, part of it was leaning up against the jar. But the point being is this concoction does dissolve lead. And in a short period of time, again, for me, if extreme case, in the absolute extreme, let's say I bought a used revolver or a used long gun that was heavy, heavy, heavy leaded up, then I would probably use this. You can't see the bottom, but perhaps you can. You can see that there's a lot of garbage floating around in there. And I do have another piece of metal in there, which is a piece of tool steel, chrome tool steel. I've set it for 40 minutes. And I'm going to see what this does to this steel at 40 minutes. And maybe there'll be a difference, maybe there's not. But it's just another way to perhaps show the longer you leave this in there, the more damage you just might be doing. Now, with all of this being said, we know that today's gun barrel metals are made better than they were way back when. Okay? And when it comes to black powder barrels, they're made better today than they were way back when. What I would be curious to see is if somebody had a piece of muzzle loading barrel that they could cut off and then put this in this solution for 20 minutes and see what happens to a muzzle loading barrel. If for some reason I were to do this in a heavily leaded muzzle loading barrel, I would probably start with about maybe 10 minutes, clean it out, drain it, neutralize everything, and run a brush in there and see what the effect is at that point. But for me, I don't have any leading issue in any of my muzzle loading guns, just simply because I use a felt wad that keeps the fire off the bottom of the round ball and preventing it from melting. Yeah, you might get some as it goes down the barrel, but you don't have any direct heat on top, on the bottom, or around your round ball. And that's why I'm an advocate for felt wads, because you're not getting that fire up against the round ball or conical. Now, when it comes to this 1860 Richards conversion, yes, I'm getting fire directly on the bottom of the bullet. Thus, I'm having a leading problem. So, I'm going to let this go for the 40-minute time limit and see what this does to this piece of tool steel. I don't know if you can look at the bottom of that even further. But yeah, there's a lot of garbage floating around in this. I don't know if that's having a different reaction with the tool steel, the chrome. It's kind of hard to really see and navigate this now that everything is so cloudy, because I can just see particles moving around, but I don't see anything specifically coming off this piece of tool steel like I did with the lead. So anyhow, that's all I want to say about that. And again, in extreme cases, this is what I would do, but I wouldn't leave it in there for no longer than 15 or 10 minutes at first. And if you gotta, put the concoction in again, put it in for another 10 minutes and see what it does. But I will tell you, from what I've seen online about Edge Red, the way this is supposed to work is this concoction, as it sits in the barrel, it works between the leading and the metal itself, and it kind of like peels it off. That's how it was best. And I only really saw one video showing how this is really supposed to be working. And this particular concoction, Edge Red's been around for a long time. And like I said, you can go on YouTube, type in the search engine, and watch several videos before formulating your own opinion about this stuff. Myself, I've known about this for a while. I've never had an opportunity, never wanted to take the opportunity to do it until I started getting low on the stuff that I've already got here. Okay, and I'm not talking about cleaning my muzzle loader. I'm talking about, cleaning, in particular, this 1860 Richards conversion. Okay, now I do have another video that I'm working on going to be working on regarding Ed's Red, but that'll be in an upcoming video. Getting a little windy out there, so I just had to pause for a minute. But I want to thank you, friends, for watching and indulging me through this experiment and listening to the entire context, because there is a context associated with this. So once again, thank you, friends, for watching, and for those of you that leave comments such as, I really enjoy this channel because you teach stuff, and this is basically what I'm trying to do, is to help people realize that there are different ways of doing things than perhaps maybe what you might read on a dogma forum. So anyhow, if you found this information useful, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and share it with your bestest of buds. And in another video, I'll show you the end results of this sitting in this concoction for 40 minutes. Hold up a sec. It's been 40 minutes. I pull that extra piece of tool steel out, and there's no pitting, no damage. The chrome's not even coming off, and if you do see a little discoloration, that's from me cutting it off at the end of the tool. And this was just nothing more than a breaker bar handle. That's all it is. But it's still a tool steel, chrome plated, and they didn't even hurt the chrome after 40 minutes. There's no pitting, no discoloration to it. But again, this is not rifle barrel material. It's something different. But I do find it interesting that it's not pitted. Again, make of what you will out of this information. I'm not here to tell you, yeah, you better do it, better not do it. Experiment with it yourself and see what your results are, and see if these results are something that you can live with. And as I mentioned before, worst case, extreme case scenario, it might just help get some of that letting out. All right, we'll catch you next video. Bye.